Welcome to episode 19 of WooWoo for the Skeptic. I'm Kim Polinder, your host and curiosity advocate for the world of metaphysics. Today we're going to be discussing the plausibility of a modern-day magic wand. Is it possible that the healing effects of energy can be embodied in a pendant? Can a pendant really do things like align the spine and alleviate physical pain? All of this will be discussed in today's interview. Many people are familiar with the power of energy healing when it comes to things like physical pain, chronic illness, and even clearing beliefs from the subconscious mind. But what if the healing effects of energy could be harnessed and contained in something physical, such as a pendant? My guest today is Richard Gordon, the founder of the energy healing modality Quantum Touch. Richard has authored many books, but his most recent work involves the creation of a pendant that holds the energy healing of the Quantum Touch modality. Now, I've used energy healing, specifically theta healing, to program objects, and it's somewhat similar to writing computer code. Assign a task to an object, and it will be forever programmed to do that one particular job. I've read about Quantum Touch, but haven't been trained in it, so the idea of having Quantum Touch's energy in a pendant piqued my curiosity. I had one of Richard's pendants on order even before this interview, and I'll be very intrigued to see what it can do. I'll be sure to report back once I experiment with it. I'm very honored to be speaking with Richard Gordon today. Richard is the founder of the energy healing modality Quantum Touch and the author of many widely read books. Richard had powerful energy healing experiences when he was young, which led him to attend the Christos School of Natural Healing in New Mexico in the early 70s. And while studying at the school, he discovered energy healing around his hands. He was introduced to Polarity Therapy, which led to a wide range of further discoveries, including the creation of Quantum Touch. Richard, thank you for being on the show and welcome.
Hey, Kim, it's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, why don't you tell the listener how you became so involved with just energy around the hands?
Well, it started a long, long time ago, as you pointed out. And I went to a doctor. I had multiple symptoms. And he said, yeah, you got a lot of things wrong with your lungs and intestines and skin and stuff. He said, but nothing was bad enough to really treat. So let's wait till you get worse. And I was properly insulted. Let's wait till the engine blows up before we talk about changing the oil. So I went to the Christos school. I learned about polarity therapy. I wrote a book called Your Healing Hands, A Polarity Experience, which was a bestseller in the 80s. And then right around the time the book was about to come out, I met a gentleman named Robert Rasmussen. And this guy blew my mind because he showed me things that I never imagined could be possible. After telling a whole series of tall tales about dissolving kidney stones under his fingertips or dissolving a cancer or a broken bone that spontaneously set with a child who had broken his leg and the bone was sticking out of the flesh. He had gone through all these crazy stories. And then he said, I just touched people and the bones moved back into alignment. And I'm thinking, this is just nuts. But he demonstrated on my girlfriend at the time, and her scoliosis just straightened up before my eyes. I couldn't believe it. I was watching her hips just roll right back into alignment and the occiput, the base of the skull, just roll. And I thought this guy either had a rare gift, no one else was ever going to learn it, and certainly not me. But I discovered that I could do it. And after years of apprenticing with him, I went ahead and wrote a book called Quantum Touch, The Power to Heal, which is really an extension of my polarity therapy book. In polarity therapy, we didn't know how to move the energy directly. We were kind of waiting for the energy, kind of like Reiki waits for the energy. And by using Quantum Touch, we were able to use breathing and body awareness exercises where you're really working the whole time to bring the energy up. And when you bring the energy up high enough, what you do essentially is you're stimulating the other person's body self-healing mechanism. And it took me a long time to figure something very simple out, but when you think about the placebo effect, the placebo can replicate pretty much any drug or surgery that exists. And the placebo is simply the body's own self-healing mechanism at work. But to trigger the placebo mechanism, usually dishonesty or deception are involved. Well, with energy healing, with quantum touch, we're able to stimulate the body's self-healing mechanism, but we're doing it energetically rather than through a psychological mechanism.
Why do you think it is that the human body cannot be in a healing mode, let's call it, by default?
It is in a healing mode by default. If you cut your finger, it heals. And there's no physiologist in the world who can explain how it does that, because the depth of intricacy for the cells, the DNA to repair itself, and everything else that needs to take place on a submolecular level, on a subatomic level, is beyond our imagination at this time. So we are always in a self-healing mode. Now, I think one of the major functions of the fact that we have a super mode, let's call it that for the moment, where conditions can get better at an extraordinary high speed, that's what you're actually talking about. Why aren't we accessing that super mode? And I think there's two answers to that question. The first is that there's more for us to learn by discovering that we are energetic beings. And the placebo is one way of showing that, but also energy healing is another way of showing that we are energetic beings and we need to access this part of ourselves. Whereas Nicholas Tesla pointed out, to paraphrase him loosely, he said, we'll make more progress. Once we discover the energy of what we are, we'll make more progress in the next year than we made in the last 100 years. But the second reason is because we are actually spiritual beings. And one way to know that we are spiritual beings is what I talk about in my work with what I call self-created health, which is helping people discover and release the emotional causes of the health condition. And sometimes the energy healing will not work. In other words, you give a person a quantum touch session and you will get very temporary results, or you may not get any results. And that will happen maybe 5 or 10% of the time. It's just not what the person needs. But in those cases, we jump right into the emotional causes of what the condition is really about emotionally. And when they release those emotions and process them with forgiveness and so forth, what happens is not only do the symptoms disappear spontaneously, even faster than placebos generally work, but the people feel incredibly grateful for having had the condition because it showed them how they'd stopped loving. So we have these hidden self-healing mechanisms within us. One of the mechanisms teaches us that we are energetic beings, and the other aspect of it shows us that we need to dive deeper into our emotional self-honesty, because as spiritual beings, our priority is to grow, not to remain physically healthy. And if being sick is going to help you to grow, well, so be it. That is our greater choice, to allow the body to express our deeper honesty through symptomology.
So the placebo effect then, instead of being some weird accident, it's more like a gateway or a communication to us, showing us our ultimate creation and healing power?
Yeah, that's very well put. I like that a lot.
So are you saying that one of the things that can hold us or prevent us from being in super mode would be limiting beliefs, like beliefs in the subconscious mind, or how do those things get seated in us?
I would say that it's not so important what beliefs you have, although that does matter a great deal. I think the important thing is the depth of emotional honesty, integrity, and the ability to express oneself, even if it's just yourself. In other words, if something pissed you off, you got to know it for you. You got to be willing to experience within you, even if it's unsafe and inappropriate to say it to the other person. You need to let yourself in on what's happening. For example, guilt is an expression of suppressed anger. Generally, where a person feels that it's not safe, they shouldn't be having these feelings. So they suppress the anger where it's anger you don't feel like you have a right to have. I used this example before, but if you run over the neighbor's dog when it ran under your tires and there was nothing you could have ever done to have stopped it, the neighbors are out crying, and you feel terribly guilty. What is the guilt actually about? Well, it's really about, I'm angry you didn't tie up your dog. I'm angry I killed your dog. I'm angry that the dog is dead. I'm angry I can't go to work. I'm angry I can't do what I had planned today. I'm angry I have to stop and take care of your feelings, and on and on and on. But instead, it's just easier to go into like, oh God, I feel so bad. I feel guilty, rather than to deal with all these inappropriate angers where you're not going to get out of your car and start yelling at the people. You should have tied up your dog, because you have compassion. So we suppress our emotions. We suppress the hurt, we suppress the anger, we suppress the guilt, we suppress the shame. And these then get expressed through health conditions. And I have a whole course that teaches people how to find and release emotional cause, and I call it Self-Created Health. And we have it listed on the Quantum Touch website. We have teachers around the world who are teaching it. And this is the most profound aspect of the work, to get to that core level. But most people want to learn, how do we bring down the pain? How do we bring down the inflammation? How do we accelerate the healing process? And that's what the basic quantum touch is for, and the advanced quantum touch for that matter.
So in your course, and I love the title of it, Self-Created Health. So in that course, the biggest challenge I see with friends and clients is the actual sitting down of dealing with those emotions. Because like you said, it's really easy to just stay in guilt or even stay in anger and then not go deeper. So do you have any tips now that you could give someone as to how they can start to deal with those feelings without, say, journaling or meditating for an hour?
It's pretty simple. It's just giving yourself permission. So for instance, if you were sitting there thinking about an interaction that you had and it didn't feel good. Okay, that's the starting place. And then what was it? Did you feel angry? Did you feel hurt? Did you feel slighted? Did you feel humiliated? Whatever it was, then just let yourself in on it. Let yourself feel it. How would you have liked to have expressed it? How would you like to have said it? So here's how I discovered Self-Created Health. I attended a workshop from a teacher who suggested that all illness was a function of suppressed anger in various forms with a lot of variation. And about 3 days later, I woke up with severe flu symptoms. Might have been 2 days later, but it's right around that time. And I had gurgling chest cough, fever, bones aching, terrible sore throat, headache, numb. I just felt terrible. And I got out of bed and I sat on the floor in my meditation spot with a blanket wrapped around me. And I thought, all right, maybe that teacher was right. Maybe there are emotional causes. So I started looking to see what I was upset about. And oddly enough, along with all my congestion, I was emotionally congested. I was numb emotionally. I couldn't find any emotion at all. I was looking at my childhood. I was looking everywhere in my life, and I couldn't find anything. And then after about 6 or 10 minutes of looking, it suddenly dawned on me, oh my God, my friend said this thing in front of my other friends intending to totally humiliate me. And I pretended nothing had been said so as to make it go away faster. And as soon as I had that thought, all my emotions came flooding in on me. I could feel the anger and I could feel the hurt, and I cried a little bit. I vented a little bit. And after maybe 7 or 8 minutes of venting and just expressing my emotion, I got up, took a shower, got dressed, drove downtown Santa Cruz where I lived at the time, sat in the sun, drinking a cup of coffee, and halfway through the coffee, I remember looking down into the cup thinking, oh my God, I was sick this morning. All the symptoms were 100% gone, that I had found and released the emotional cause. And so the first step for anybody, without even taking the course or anything, is just start being more emotionally honest and vulnerable with yourself to feel the intensity of our own emotions. I've heard it said that the biggest human blockage is the unwillingness to feel the intensity of your own emotions. And the reason for this is that our pain goes deeper than we want to know, but our love goes deeper than we can know, because the love goes all the way to infinity.
Wow, yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just, I've heard people say, oh, I don't want to start crying because I'm afraid I'll never stop.
Well, good. Go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. Don't stop. But here's a tip. a really good tip from the Self-Created Health Workshop. If you want to process grief and you're dealing with one of those won't stop people, congratulate them on having such good access to their emotion and suggest that they do it in a very intense way. And that is, set the alarm for 20 minutes. Unplug the phone and don't let yourself think of anything else, but you got to grieve for the full 20 minutes. And then when the 20 minutes are up, okay, drop it. Just drop it like that and then move forward. And what you'll find is it's really easy to grieve all day, but it's really hard to do it without stopping. So if you do it without stopping, it's like running a marathon. It's very challenging to hold that thought for 20 full minutes and to be able to keep the grieving up. You have to force yourself to do it because it's not easy to do. And at the end of 20 minutes, you're relieved, and then nurture yourself for an hour. This is a really good thing to do because you do the grieving for the 20 minutes and then nurture yourself for an hour, and you pre-plan the nurturing. It could be to lay in the sun, get in a hot tub, read a book, go to a movie, get a massage, hang out with a friend that you love. Whatever is nurturing to you, you plan it ahead of time. And then at the end of the 20 minutes, you go into full nurturing mode. And if you do that, I guarantee you, you're not going to feel like crying all day. It's going to release a tremendous amount. And then you can repeat it in another, a few days or a week if you need to, which is great.
Yeah, it's like a super purge.
It's a super purge. And so for the people who think they're never going to stop crying, try that one out.
Mm-hmm. And could this be applied to any emotion? Let's say you're really angry about something,
No. In my Self-Created Health Workshop, I have a whole schedule of how to deal with anger, how to deal with hurt, whole processes for forgiveness, how to deal with shame, how to deal with humiliation. There's no simple answer for everything, but it's a way to deal with grief that I shared.
Yeah. So could you talk a little bit about, before we get into the specifics of quantum touch, just the science of energy healing in general, like to the skeptics or left brain listeners out there?
Oh, I love skeptics. I've never met a skeptic who could make it through a workshop with their skepticism intact. It's never happened. I can show things in seconds now to skeptics that will either cause them to ask questions or to run away. But essentially, energy healing works like this. When two things vibrate at different frequencies, either the lower frequency comes up to match the higher frequency, the higher one comes down to match the lower one, or they're going to meet in the middle. The quantum touch practitioner, through a series of breathing and body awarenesses, brings their energy up. This energy is often called chi, ki, or prana. These are different words people use for this life force energy. It's not a material energy, and it's not going to be measured using our standard equipment. It doesn't make it not real. It just makes it something that we have not seen. Just because your TV doesn't get certain channels doesn't mean those channels doesn't exist. And there are channels of this energy that have a dramatic and visible impact on the physical body. And yet, they are non-physical energies, and they work at any distance, and they work probably across time and space, although I can't prove that yet. So I've got this thing that I kind of built up over many years, and it's a great way of showing skeptics that something is happening that they have no accounting for. And what it is most people have their hips in a twisted kind of way. And the occipital ridge, that's the base of the skull. If you put your thumbs on your neck and you lift up, eventually you'll find where the bone starts. And if you had your thumbs under the bone and you lift up, about half the people have it so far out of alignment, they can even feel it. Maybe it's a third of the people, but it's a lot of people where if you lift up on the base of the skull, without too much pressure, just lightly, you might feel that your right or left thumb is much higher than the other. And by the way, there is no simple way of aligning the cranium. I showed this to a chiropractor a few days ago, and I said, what do you do to get the bones aligned at the base of the occiput? He said, well, it's very painful, it takes a long time, and it doesn't usually last. And I said, yeah. Now, what if I told you we could do it in a second without any force? He said, that would be impressive. So what I had been doing is I'd been meditating for about 4 to 5 seconds to get that to happen. That was something that I taught in my Quantum Touch 2.0 book, The New Human, showing a series of new human abilities. But then I discovered that I could put consciousness, energy, and intention into a pendant. And this will be the subject of my upcoming book next year called The Secret Nature of Matter. I did 58 experiments where I eventually discovered a phenomena I call conscious entanglement, where you can group many objects together in your mind simultaneously. And I've grouped pendants together, and because they're all grouped, I can run energy into them, and so can hundreds or even thousands of our best instructors and practitioners. So now we have these pendants. They're out of stock right now, but if you just touch somebody with a pendant, one of the energy intentions put into the pendant is to untwist the hips and the occiput. So I had my friend, who doesn't believe this is real, tap somebody's shoulder for a split second with one of our quantum touch pendants, and he measured the occiput immediately after, and he stepped backwards going, oh my God. It was like unbelievable to him that energy and intention in a physical object, without him having to believe it, with just a slight tap, would do something that would take a long time and be very painful, that is widely considered to be physiologically impossible.
Is it a permanent change?
Yeah, that happens to be permanent, because the thought form that's going into that particular activity is to align the sphenoid bone, which is a bone behind the nose and eyes. Now, the sphenoid bone is out of alignment usually at birth, and people will maintain twisted hips and occiput usually for the rest of their life. And chiropractors know how to put a person on their side and do a pelvic roll, so that some people call it $1 million roll because they can keep getting the person to come back every week and make their $1 million off of it. They crunch a person with pressing in two directions, and then 3 days later it's back where it was. Now, with this particular touch, it untwists the sphenoid bone, and the occiput and the hips immediately come untwisted. And that is the beginning of the story of what these pendants are doing, because this whole thing has been coming as a tremendous surprise to me. I just came back from a conference retreat in Cancun, Mexico, and I was taking lots of little videos showing people's shock and amazement when I put their occiput back into alignment by touching them with a pendant for a split second. And it's really fun to take these videos, because I say, can you feel the right side is higher? And they go, oh yeah, it's clearly higher. And I tap them with it for a second. And then I say, okay, feel it now. And they have this 1 second pause before they break out into a smile and start laughing and going, how is that possible? How could this have happened? And they can feel it. But on the last evening that I was there, I was talking to a gentleman, and he was saying that his right sinus has been closed for a couple decades. He hasn't been able to breathe out of it. So I handed him 2 pendants, and I said, put this on either side of your nose. And he did. Within 4 or 5 minutes, he said he could breathe through the right nostril. I was shocked. And then 3 other people had some pain they wanted to get rid of. 2 women with jaw tension. They couldn't open their jaw properly. They held it for 4 or 5 minutes, and their jaw opened up. And another woman with pain under her eyes had her pain go away. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I knew the pendants were good, but I didn't know they could do all this. Well, this is the first group healing object I've ever been aware of. And what it is hundreds and soon thousands of our best practitioners are going to be running energy into it every single day. So every day it gets stronger than the day before. So in some of my early experiments, I put energy into objects, and by handing them to people, I could measure that it was untwisting them, which is a simple way to know it's doing something. Well, 10 months later, when I was finishing writing my book, it was still working, the object I had charged 10 months ago. But get this, now that we have hundreds and thousands of people who will be running energy into objects, this thing is never going to lose its charge. It's only going to get stronger on a daily basis.
And it's not like a crystal where you need to clear it in some manner?
No, because say some people who have these pendants are depressed, they're angry, they're hurt, they're outraged, and they're putting all that bad juju into their pendant. Well, the love's 1,000,000 times stronger. And all these people are putting their love, their gratitude, their healing energy, and when you look at it with intent, you think, I want to connect to some of that good stuff. Well, that's what you're pulling in because it's based on intention.
Yeah, I used to spend a lot of time using crystals for blocking negative energy, blah, blah, blah. And what I've switched to, and even in protecting my own energy field, is just to use unconditional love straight from source. And, that's much more powerful and effective than strategically placing all these pendants and crystals around me.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, how many can you carry around?
Yeah,
the more, the better, right? Let's get 100 of them all over me, right?
Yeah.
So here's something else. If you want to protect yourself and you're not experiencing gratitude at the moment, and you're in one of your more painful self-pity bouts, what you can do is just do breathing and body awareness. So the basic quantum touch technique has people feeling their whole body in waves and learning how to do some deep breathing in waves. So you're moving the awareness through your body in waves, and that immediately protects you from the lower vibrations because you're raising your vibration. And so people don't pick up anything. And so the practitioners never feel tired or drained at the end of a session, because the very first thing we teach is how to raise your own frequency, how to raise your own vibration. So you can't pick up anything, and the other person can only match your vibration, which accelerates the healing process.
And can people buy a pendant online or?
Yeah, when they're back in the store, we're upgrading our entire process of manufacturing. And we decided that we just wanted to, no holds barred, just make it the very best physical product we could make it. Energetically, it's not going to be any better than it was before, but we're just making it of the highest materials we can possibly put in there. And so it may be after Christmas before they're back in stock, or right around that time, right around Christmas. But we have an expedited order to get them all done, and then they have to be charged and packaged. It's a process, and we hope to never be out of stock again, but people have been buying up these things. And one of the amazing things that's happening with it is a lot of people are using it as an introduction to energy healing. They're seeing how quickly and well these pendants are working, and that gets them interested in learning quantum touch, which is wonderful as far as I'm concerned, because quantum touch has been a little bit out there. People haven't really known what to make of it. And I've been doing this work, as you know, since the mid-'70s. I've been joking any decade now I'm going to be an overnight success. But it seems to be the right time, because now we have something that is indisputable, that's verifiable. And we just ran our first clinical experiment with quantum touch. And I've seen about 80% of the data. We're going to do sessions on 50 people. I think all 50 sessions are there, but they're not all in a place where I could find them yet. And the scientist is going to go through them. But in my first analysis of the data, just, little spreadsheet I made quickly, what I saw was 100% of the people receiving a session had some pain relief. And the average pain relief was 69%. Okay, I'm going to be accurate, not round it up. But 69% pain relief from a single session, and every single person in the study that I saw so far, which is about 80% of them, about 40 people, had pain relief. And placebos work about a third of the time. So we are blowing away a simple placebo response.
And that's great that you're spending resources and time on doing the clinical research, because that's what's lacking in the energy healing world.
Of course. And the next research study we're going to do, we haven't set it up yet, but we're just brainstorming it now. But I'll tell you what it is, because I'm so excited about it. What we want to do is we want to take blood tests before and after sessions and measure the inflammatory factors. So we're going to show that it brings down inflammation, because virtually every single health condition has inflammation involved with it. And one thing you can think about inflammation is like the forest fire, and the degeneration of your tissues is like the erosion after the fire. So what we need to do in all health and longevity, and by the way, I have a program I put out recently called The Art of Youthing, that's slowing, stopping, and reversing aging. And one of the major themes is inflammation and how we prevent inflammation in the first place, or how to deal with inflammation if you have that, how to slow, stop, and reverse inflammation as well. because the entropy process is one of inflammation.
Why don't you take some time here and can you explain what quantum touch is, and maybe compare it to Reiki, since most people have a baseline for Reiki?
Yeah, quantum touch is a form of energy healing, usually hands-on healing, but it can be distant as well. It differs from Reiki, which a lot of people are familiar with. We have no attunements, no symbols, no initiation of any kind. We teach people how to use simple breathing and body awareness exercises to raise the energy. We're all using Reiki. We're all using the ki, the life force energy that flows through us. It's the animating current of life. It's the chi, it's the prana, whatever word we use. We're all using that. But we do it in a way where we're not waiting for the energy to show up like Reiki does, where you put your hands on the person and you're waiting for the energy. We bring it. And so we're working the whole time. Unlike Reiki, who are just hanging out, we're actually doing breathing and body awareness consciously the entire time. So it's much more work. And so we see a series of phenomena that are unfamiliar to Reiki. And like one of the phenomena that I've mentioned before is just aligning people spontaneously with just a light touch in seconds. And when I was on the road giving endless lectures and workshops building the quantum touch business, I would tell people during my lectures that they'll be able to move bones back into alignment before lunch break on the first day or their money back, and no one ever failed. So we see many things that Reiki is not known to do. And another difference between Reiki is that we never feel tired or drained at the end of a session. Now, you're not supposed to, according to Reiki, but when I interviewed about 50 people during a lecture to Reiki masters and Reiki third degree and second degree people, mostly masters, I said, how many of you ever feel tired or drained? And at least half the hands in the room went up that they do sometimes feel tired or drained. Now, the way they could avoid it as Reiki people is to maintain their gratitude. And that would be enough of an energy vibration raise to prevent them getting tired or drained. But not everybody's able to do that all the time. And so they do sometimes feel tired or drained. With quantum touch, that can't happen because we immediately raise our vibration with breathing and body awareness. And that is the foundation of all the work.
So you start by breathing with body awareness, and then at some point, do you connect to that source energy?
Well, you are connecting with the energy because that is the energy. The body awareness and the breath pull in that spiritual energy. That is the chi, the prana, the life force energy we're working with.
Okay. So you kind of ramp up that energy, and then now it's flowing through you, and then the hands are critical?
Well, we use our hands most of the time when we start out. And we have a very complicated technique we call the where does it hurt technique. And you find out where it hurts and you sandwich it between your hands. And then we chase the pain from place to place. So if a person said they had a pain in their neck, but now they're feeling it in their shoulder and now they're feeling it in their hip, you just go from point A to B, C, and just keep chasing it until the pain is gone and it is no more. It's a very straightforward, easy thing to do. We've had children taking the workshops and successfully doing the work. We've had great-grandparents doing the work. It's what I call the easiest human skill that there is to learn. People can become effective even in a weekend workshop. We usually see the pain in the room drop dramatically, even from the very first practice session. There's so many great stories about this stuff, of what's happened to people, even within the workshops themselves, much less when they take it out and practiced on friends and family.
So let's say that someone's chronic pain is due to some emotional something that got stuck. And so you can bring relief to that at a physical level. But what happens to the beliefs that are holding that, or that created that pain in the first place?
They're stuck. That person's going to keep bringing it back to themselves over and over again. And funny, because one of my top instructors, she came out from Holland with her friend, another friend from Holland, and they took my self-created health class. And during the class, she told us that she had this pain in her hip and it kept coming back. And she would get a quantum touch session, then it comes back again and again. And so that was the subject she wanted to deal with to see if she could find the emotional cause. And in about 10 or 15 minutes of that workshop, she knew exactly what the emotional cause was. And when she processed those emotions, the pain went away forever. Well, that's good, because you can keep dealing with it energetically, but if it's a deep emotional thing, it's not just the beliefs. The beliefs are there for sure, but it's also the old emotional wounds that you keep playing that support the belief. And once you heal the emotional wound, then the belief can shift spontaneously, because the woman who took the workshop, after she processed the emotions, she said, I couldn't stop crying. I never felt so grateful in my life. I never felt so much love in my life. I never loved myself so much. And she went on for over 5 minutes this way, just talking about it. I said, well, what was the pain? She said, well, my shoulder hurt. And everybody laughed because she didn't even care about the shoulder. And oh, by the way, the shoulder pain was all gone. But the big story was she realized how much she loved her father and how she had forgiven her father. Now, what was the belief about Dad? Oh, that belief changed because she released the emotion. She was able to go into self-forgiveness. She understood the situation more deeply. And in place of all that pain was overwhelming self-love and gratitude. So the body had no need to show that pain anymore. And oh, by the way, the belief about Dad changed as well.
So, in essence, the Self-Created Health course could eliminate the need for quantum touch in the long run.
Well, yes and no, I don't think so. Because I think 80%, 90% of all the things that happen, you're not going to want to have to figure out emotional cause. Okay, my friend sprained his finger recently really badly during a jiu-jitsu course. We can find what that is about, but he put a pendant on his finger for 20 minutes, and the next morning the pain was 100% gone. Now, there are many, the child falls down, bumps his knee, and you run the energy in his knee, and the pain is gone. Hooray, hurrah. That's all it took. There's many things that will respond immediately to the work, and you don't want to have to become this psychoanalyst all the time, having to figure every single thing out that ever happens to you. But when it's important, that 10 or 15% of the time, that it's really an important thing, and this is a real symptom, this is something important coming up for me. Okay, I give you an example to myself. I tend to have a tight lower back a lot of the time, but it doesn't really bother me very much, but it started really bothering me, and it started being too painful. And I know the general offhand idea that lower back pain is often about emotional or financial support. But when I run that through my computer, I say, well, I am feeling emotionally supported and I am financially okay right now. I'm not hurting. And so I don't understand what this is. Well, Jennifer, my business partner, I think you interviewed her already, she said, let's do the full Self-Created Health on and see what's there. So I have her writing down all my answers, which you got to do, and I ask all these questions. And the questions, very innocuous questions like what emotions do you feel because you're sick kind of questions. And I answered all the questions, and it paints a three-dimensional picture. And when we explored the three-dimensional picture, I then had the understanding. And the understanding was a story. A friend of mine who is a genius, but he's not able to take care of himself very well. He can't really hold down a job. And I had a choice. Either make sure he's not living on the street and give him a bunch of money, or let him be homeless. And I chose to take care of him. And I was angry a little bit because I didn't want to have to take care of him. I didn't want to support him, but I was supporting him, so I was carrying some resentment around. And that resentment showed itself up as my own personal back pain. And once I processed the emotion and said, no, this is my choice. I choose to see that he's okay. And it really became my choice. Then the pain disappeared. I processed out the anger and the feelings, and my pain disappeared. So you have to find out what the emotional cause is, and they're always disguised or hidden in a way. But we've learned what to think in our life, but we've never really learned how to think. And I came up with a very simple way to teach people how to think, how to figure out emotional causation. And once I discovered the emotional causation, it took me another 29 years exactly to figure out all the 7 steps of the process for self-created health. Because step 1 is the emotional cause. That's only 1 of 7. And the other 6 had to be done in the correct order. And once you understand them, they make so much sense that I've had psychotherapists say, oh my God, why isn't this all we were taught in school instead of all that other nonsense? Because this is the natural pattern for healing and releasing emotion, is finding the emotional cause, releasing the intensity, then and only then looking at the emotional responsibility of it, going through the remorse, the forgiveness, the insights, the discoveries, and the overwhelming self-love on the other side of that process.
Yeah, I would think that self-created health training and quantum touch would go hand in hand, like you would want both.
Yeah, I really think so. And the first thing I tell people is I congratulate them for their courage, because, you know, when you dip your toe into the water of the emotion of your being, you're going deep within yourself, and not everybody wants to have that kind of experience of themselves. A lot of people want to keep it shallow. They don't want to have to feel how deeply they love and how deeply they care.
When it comes to illness, have you had experiences with more terminal or more serious things like cancer or stuff like that?
We've had our practitioners working on virtually any condition you can think of. And yeah, it works across the board, but not everybody's willing to experience the intensity of those emotions. They run very deep. And we've also seen basic quantum touch help people in hospice situations just unbelievably well. I mean, one woman brought me into a hospital to see her dad, and I said, I'll come under the condition that you have friends and family coming along too, because I'm going to teach them how to run energy. And I taught them how to run energy in the hospital. I felt subversive, like I was, sneaking something into a hospital I wasn't supposed to be there. But they all worked on Dad, and Dad started laughing and telling jokes and kicking the covers off. And she said that this was the most valuable thing, precious experience of her life, to spend that extra week with Dad before he died and really get to talk, because he was in too much pain to be with her emotionally before then. And she had a newspaper, and she gave me a one-page ad in her newspaper as a gift for what I gave to her that time with her dad before he died. And all the family members got to visit him. They got to do some rudimentary quantum touch on him, and they got to really feel his love before he died. It's so astounding to me that this isn't part of our public education, that this isn't something that children in elementary school start to learn how to do, that when somebody's, can't sit still or they're really cranky or whatever, heck, instead of punishing people, give them some love. It's sort of like I entered the wrong reality, it seems, where I woke up and the wrong people, the psychopaths, were in charge of everything. It's like a horror movie.
Yeah, well, I love the fact that you've had kids who have trained in quantum touch, and I love to see more kids learning energy healing techniques.
Exactly. And we've even had parents telling us stories that the 3-year-old has had enough experiences of mommy and daddy running energy that when mommy and daddy get a boo-boo, they start taking some deep breaths and putting their hands on the parents.
Yeah, it's amazing. Getting back to the skeptics, what would you say to skeptics who don't believe in energy healing? Or perhaps what was it that convinced you back in the day that energy healing was a thing, a real thing?
Well, the thing that convinced me was the way I felt experiencing the work, and then what I saw it could do to other people. That was just immediate. But I would first ask the skeptics to tell me what kind of skeptic they are. There's 3 kinds. The first kind was unwilling to look through Galileo's telescope. The second kind rationalized and said it worked great during the day, but it obviously doesn't work at night. And the third kind was willing to look and question, what is optics? Why does this work? And how can I get one of these things? Can I look again? In other words, they get their hands dirty. Now, most skeptics I'll encounter are skeptics of the first or second kind. They'll say that's stupid, it can't be true. Or they'll say, it isn't true because it can't be true, which is just rationalization. But if they're willing to look, I'll show them something immediately that can't be true. And then they're going to be dealt with their own cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is a bitch, Because when your own beliefs are having a head-on collision with each other, I believe I just saw this, but I believe it can't be true, then a person goes into a state of crisis. And in that crisis, that crisis has to be resolved, and it will either be resolved by them running away or by taking another look. And then you find out what they're made of, what kind of integrity they have, whether they're willing to explore a mystery that violates their fundamental assumptions of reality, or they'd be just more comfortable to run away. And many of them will do that.
What would you say to people who grew up in a religious setting and are subscribed to traditional religion and are excited or curious about energy healing, but yet there's something about it where, traditionally the church has said it's of the devil?
I would say to read their own Bible, because Christ did hands-on healing and he said, greater things shall ye do. Now, if that isn't a clear expression of using your love, of giving love from one to another, I don't know what is. So they're reading the wrong passages, because giving love to each other is the essence of Christianity, and alleviating suffering is the essence of compassion. And if love and compassion have nothing to do with Christianity, you did something wrong with the book, because the book is about love and compassion. It's not about vengeance and nasty crap. It's about love and compassion. Now, for people who are really superstitious, religiously so, I'll say, well, pray before you do the session that only good comes of it, and have love and compassion. How much evil can be generated from that? And there's nothing in any religious text that says don't breathe and don't feel awareness of your body. And there's nothing in any religious text that says don't be nice to other people. So this is a way of being nice. You're putting your hands where it hurts, and you're breathing, and you're feeling body awareness, and you have good intention, and you're praying to God. Now, if that violates somebody's religion, they got deeper problems than I can help.
Yeah, that book can be tricky, that's for sure.
Well, people interpret anything the way they want to see it. And I like to get to the essence of things and say, well, it's, what did he say? Love God and love each other. Have love from one to another. And if that wasn't the essence of it, they're making up a story.
Yeah, it does all trace back to a story of some sort at some point.
Exactly.
All right, Richard. Well, before I let you go, would it be okay if I asked you some fun questions to help listeners get to know a different side of you?
Fun is good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The first question is, what do you like to do on your day off?
I like to play golf.
Oh.
I won a golf tournament last year.
Wow.
I played in the senior golf tournament at my club, and I shot 4 under par for the last 9 holes on a difficult course, which for those who play golf know that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's really good. That's great.
And I tried applying this year at age 68, and they carded me because they didn't know if I was over 50. So they had me pull out my driver's license to prove that I was over 50 so I could play in this tournament.
Wow, that was just a bonus to your day.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of funny, but the art of youthing is working, maybe not as fast as I'd like, but we're on track to, at the very least, slow it down, if not stop and reverse it.
Yeah. And then lastly, what is the number one thing on your bucket list?
To change the dominant belief system of consciousness on the planet. The dominant belief is that we're physical beings, we're not spiritual beings, and that our love is just an epiphenomena of brain activity, and that we're all separate from one another, and we're just physical, and that you can explain everything in reality through math and physics. And I'm kind of on this quest, and this is my personal quest, is to change that dominant belief system and show that our love is actually real valuable, that it has impact, and that it truly matters, and to do enough science and enough reality creation as to get the world to change its mind on this one subject. But on a more personal level, just to really have a lot of fun, to love deeply, and to fulfill my chosen destiny.
Yeah, and it sounds like you are doing that. And I like your background with science and mixing that with the energy healing world. So if a listener out there is kind of in that beginner space and is curious, like which one of your books would be a good starter book for someone?
Quantum Touch, The Power to Heal is a great place to begin, Because, one friend of mine said, well, in your book, did you actually teach people or you just talk about healing? No, I teach everything. I give away all my secrets all the time. I never hold anything back. And I teach people how to do a complete session in that book. And then after that book, a lot of people choose to watch our online video course, which I run through the entire book, or they take a live workshop from instructors, and then they go through the book again, because it's having the direct experience of it is so much more valuable, because you'll never know how good the work is if you just read it. You gotta actually put your hands on somebody or have them put their hands on you to feel the experience of that life force energy, because it is a game changer.
Yeah, that experiential aspect is pretty critical. And I think experimenting with it is the fun part. Like because I used to come from a very skeptical background, and so just like experimenting, playing with it was the fun part.
Yes. How wonderful is that?
Yeah. So if users want to buy a pendant in the future when they're back in stock, or sign up for the Self-Created Health training, what website should they use?
quantumtouch.com is the way to go. Just go to the shop and they'll find the pendants. We've got practitioners working in 50 countries now and workshops all over the world. So it is accessible to people.
All right. Well, Richard, thanks again for dedicating your time today. I really loved the interview and for sharing all your thoughts.
Hey, it's fun going in lots of places I didn't anticipate as well.
Thank you for listening to WooWoo for the Skeptic. I would love to hear from you if you have ideas for a show or want to give feedback on an episode. And if you got some valuable insight on this episode on magic pendants, please subscribe to the show in your podcast app so that you never miss an episode. And now for your moment of woo. This quote comes from the beloved author Roald Dahl, who said, "And above all, watch with glittering eyes the whole world around you, because the greatest secrets are always hidden in the most unlikely places. Those who don't believe in magic will never find it." Have a great week, everyone.